Hey everybody, my name's Chris. I am a bookseller at Boswell Book Company, and I'm really excited to welcome you to our Zoom virtual launch, virtual cooking demo, virtual a little bit of everything with Erin Clarke. And she's here in conversation with Andi Sciacca of the Milwaukee Food School, founder of Milwaukee Food School, not just of. We're welcoming Erin Clarke tonight, Milwaukee's own creator of the healthy cooking blog, loved in the blogosphere, loved in all the spheres, Well Plated by Erin. So please, Andi, Erin, take it away.
Thank you so much, Chris. This is Andi, everyone. I'm going to stay off camera so that we can focus on Erin's kitchen, the well-plated kitchen, of course. So I'm super excited to be here tonight. I am a big fan, as are, I'm sure, everyone in the chat space. And I'm going to turn it over first to Erin to tell us a little bit about the mise en place in her kitchen, what she has set up for us, and the exciting way in which tonight's recipe was decided.
All right. So if you have the Well Plated Cookbook, I invite you to turn to page 159. I am making the lemon chicken pasta salad with tarragon and grapes, which I'll show you a picture of as soon as I check on my pasta. So pasta salad, I gave it away. I'm cooking some whole wheat pasta back here on my stove, and I'm feeling really super proud of myself because I managed not to boil it over. It feels perfectly al dente. So I'm going to bring it over here to my sink and drain it.
While Erin is draining, I'll just say that we've got great comments coming in. It seems like a whole lot of people were inspired by your recipes tonight for dinner, Erin. We had someone cook the peanut chicken, the salmon, the Whole30 salmon, apple crisp. Everyone is here to celebrate you, so it's a whole lot of fun to watch this happen. So just wanted to share that. We're glad to see so many people, from so many places.
That is awesome. Thank you. So I just drained the pasta, and because this is for a pasta salad, I'm actually going to rinse it. I feel like I might be angering some Italians in the audience because I think I'm breaking a pasta rule, but when it comes to pasta salad, you just got to do it. So whenever I'm making a pasta salad, and if you have been a victim of goopy, watery pasta salads in the past, hopefully this tip will help you. And I'm glad you're not too traumatized to join us tonight because this pasta salad can change your mind. So this is a cool pasta salad. You can serve it cool or at room temperature. And what I like to do is just rinse it, stop the cooking, and then I'm actually just going to leave it here and let it hang out in my sink for about 5 minutes so that even more of the water will drain off. So you just hang out over here, friend. And then let's head back over here to the island. Tonight I am cooking the way that I advise everyone to cook, so I'm trying to be good here and lead by example. And that said, I have every ingredient that I need in this recipe out and handy. I'm just going to turn off my timer so it doesn't chirp at us the entire time. So what I have all of my ingredients laid out, and I have all my ingredients laid out, and then that way I know that I'm not going to forget anything as I go along. Because even though this is my recipe, I still, just like any of you, can get in a group, and there's just nothing worse than getting to the end of a recipe and then realizing, oh my gosh, I forgot to add the baking powder if I'm making cookies or whatever it may be, because sometimes you can fix it and sometimes it's a little hard to go back. So anyway, as I was saying before that pasta interrupted us, we are on page 159. This is the lemon chicken pasta salad with tarragon and grapes. I absolutely love this dish for so many reasons, and I was really happy that you picked it. I put up a vote on my Instagram stories. I'm at Well Plated on Instagram. If you don't follow me already, you're welcome to check out my account. In addition to the fun, healthy recipes I share in my feed, I do a lot of giveaways. And then on my stories, I'm pretty candid and real with the behind the scenes. If you follow me regularly, you know that my kitchen never looks this good, but anyway, hopefully I'm teasing you with a good impression of it now. I love it. Anyway, where was I? Yes, I love this recipe, both for light dinners. It's really nice for the summer. And it's really nice and filling because we've got our whole grains, protein, and fruit, but it's not so heavy that it's going to send you into a food coma. We can save that sensation for November, December. It's still August, September, looking for something that's a little lighter. This is a great pick. And I love it equally for lunches too. That's something that's been really important to me because I don't know about you, but now that we've been all staying home a lot more often. I find that I'm just getting a little more tired of cooking than I do usually, because it's not just dinners that I have to worry about, it's now lunches too. So meal prep, this recipe is a dream, and it will be your friend when you're trying to get ahead on things for the week. Feeling bummed about lunch, open your refrigerator and see this, you can't help but smile. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started with the recipe, and if at any point you have questions as I'm going along or a thought, please feel free to chime in and share that with us. I'm gonna start with the dressing. This pasta salad has a base made of Greek yogurt. If you are kind of pasta salad skeptic, one of the reasons that I find that people don't like pasta salad is because they have traumatic memories of family reunions where goopy mayo-based pasta salads were kind of a given on the table. That is not what this is. It's really light and bright and refreshing. Greek yogurt gives you that same creaminess that mayonnaise has, but it is really high in protein, and I'm using non-fat Greek yogurt, so there's no fat in it either. And if my mother's watching this, I'm sure that she would tell you that I have a lifelong aversion to mayonnaise, to the extent that if she made my sister a grilled cheese sandwich or any kind of sandwich with mayonnaise and then cut my sandwich in half, I refuse to touch it. I'm sorry, Mom. I just want you to know it's not your fault. I'm in my 30s and I still don't like mayonnaise, so I don't think it was anything that you did. All right, so
Erin,
got our base.
Sorry, Erin. We do have one quick question. If someone can't have dairy at all, would you say that any of the other yogurts might work in place of the Greek yogurt, like a non-dairy yogurt or a soy yogurt, or would you say to stay away from those?
I don't see any reason to stay away from those. I'm going to be honest, that's not something that I purchase or play around with regularly. But if there is an unsweetened non-dairy yogurt that you enjoy, I think you can absolutely swap it here. What you're looking for is something that has a little bit of tang and creaminess to it. You definitely don't want to get anything flavored unless you enjoy a vanilla flavored lemon chicken pasta salad, in which case maybe send me the recipe, because I'd be very curious to hear about that.
Thanks, Erin.
All right, so right now I am zesting a lemon into the dressing. I don't know how often you make your own dressing at home. It's one of those things that I just feel this like critical inertia. It's like I don't want to motivate myself to make my own dressing. I don't know why, it just feels so hard. And then I do, and I realize it took 3 minutes, and it tastes a million times better than anything out of the bottle. I actually have 3 of my favorite salad dressings in the Well Plated Cookbook. I promise you, if you shake up one of those, you are going to be a fan of making your own dressing for life. So this pasta salad, what gives it that lightness and brightness is the fresh lemon juice, and zest. I think a lot of the time we juice lemons and just kind of forget about the zest, but you know what? You bought the lemon anyway and you get the zest for free. Oh, also, we need to talk about this. I'm very anti-specialty kitchen gadget. I really think there's not much you can't do with a knife and a cutting board, but a citrus press is an exception because it gets every speck out of your lemon. And by the way, I used this thing wrong for years. I used to think like, oh, well, I want to see it shaped like this. You think you want to put the lemon in like this? Flip that puppy over.
You're getting some thanks for showing people how to use that.
Have you squirted yourself in the eye with juice, doing it upside down? You're like, why am I constantly pelting myself in the face? Yeah, I did that too. Just flip it over.
Got some people saying they've done the same thing many times.
So we've got our lemon juice. And one other thing I wanted to say about lemon juice, if you are a fan of Simone Norset, I know I am. She wrote a book called Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat. And that book is kind of really just interesting the way that she approaches cooking. Hold on, I'm just double checking my amount. You might think you know, but you don't. See, I was about to put an entire tablespoon of Dijon mustard. It should be a teaspoon. I'll just switch it right over to that one. Oh, that's the 3/4. Here we go. Where was I? Ah, yes. So components to cooking: salt, fat, acid, and heat. Acid is one that up until a few years ago, and really I got into this while developing recipes for my cookbook. I think a lot of us forget about the acid. Next time you're cooking and you're tasting your recipe and you think like, this just tastes a little flat, it needs a little something. Most of the time for me, I find that it is salt. So try seasoning it with a pinch of extra salt and see where that gets you. And then a lot of the time what you might be missing is acid. Try squeezing a little lemon juice, or depending on the recipe, lime juice over the top, splash of vinegar. You won't taste it necessarily, but it'll really brighten up your entire dish. Okay, what have we got next? 1 tablespoon plus 1 teaspoon of honey. So this pasta salad isn't sweet. The honey is here for balance. So we got our hit of acid from the lemon juice, and actually a little from the Greek yogurt too. It has kind of a certain tang to it. And then the honey just kind of balances that. I also like using honey if I'm doing stir fries or any kind of recipe that has some spice. Again, because what you're looking to do is balance. Well, in that case, you'd be balancing the heat. In this case, you're balancing the acid. And I'll add this dressing is 100% adaptable. So if, for example, you're not into Dijon mustard, I believe we got a question before the event about what, Erin, I think Tina maybe was who submitted it. Erin, I noticed that a lot of your recipes use Dijon. Is there anything I can substitute for that? Dijon doesn't really have a lot of substitutes. I will say if you're not a fan of the French's yellow mustard in the squeezy bottle, I'm really not either. Dijon is pretty different than that. Hold on, I'm getting ahead of myself here. Cannot talk and measure at the same time. 1 1/4 teaspoons kosher salt. We also got a question about kosher salt, so we'll talk about that too. But back to the mustard. So I really enjoy mustard in recipes because this pasta salad doesn't taste mustardy. It tastes a little bit zippy. I think Dijon is the thing, that one of those ingredients you can add to just about anything. When you're eating, you're like, that's good. What is that? Dijon is will give you that effect. All right, which one of these is not dirty yet? Here we go. All right, so 1 1/4 teaspoons of kosher salt. I always, always, always recommend kosher salt. If you only have table salt in your pantry right now, either throw it over your shoulder for good luck, use it to cook pasta, or finish it up, and then the next time you go to the grocery store, I highly encourage you to give kosher salt a try instead. And the reason is that, here, let's see if I can get my cute cameraman husband to zoom in on this. Do you see how the kosher salt grains are larger? Okay, I think you get, yep, like that. So they're all different kinds of salt, and they're all a little bit different from each other. The reason I don't like table salt is because it is iodized, and that is what keeps it free flowing. So, think about if a box of kosher salt sits for a long time, it can clump together. Or so they say. I've actually never had that happen to me. But it is just, the only ingredient in this is pure salt. It's not treated with any kind of chemical, so it has a much cleaner and brighter flavor. If you at some point do a side-by-side taste test with table salt versus kosher salt, I think you'll really notice a striking difference. Ever since I did that, I stopped buying table salt that day. Those larger grains also help because if you're sprinkling or seasoning your food, you're much less likely to grab too much and over season it. So that's another reason I really like kosher salt. Different brands, the grains can be different sizes. I use Morton's for my cookbook because that's the brand that I see carried the most often. So I feel like that's what most people have access to. I have yet to go into a grocery store that doesn't have kosher salt. So I think once you look for it, you'll find it's a really easy and accessible ingredient, and it'll improve your cooking.
We got one question on sea salt.
Yeah,
Would
I've
that
been
be?
talking to you a lot, so I'm gonna take a break.
So
I'm very passionate about salt.
Well, you're getting a lot of thanks for the salt information. Someone wanted to know if it would be okay to use sea salt rather than kosher salt.
I would say that fine sea salt I use those pretty interchangeably. Not in my cookbook, but in recipes that call for a fine sea salt, I use kosher salt, and I haven't had any problems yet. If it's a recipe, you know what, I honestly can't even think of a good example. I would say if a recipe calls for fine sea salt, you're probably fine using that. An important difference, though, is if a recipe calls for finishing with fleur de sel, or you've heard of Maldon, that is different. It's a very, very delicate salt. I would never cook with that in a recipe with heat because, like a nice olive oil, that's a nice salt. You're going to kind of just take away the nuances of flavor there. So if I'm finishing the top of, say, a pan of brownies, if you want to make the chocolate covered strawberry brownies in my dessert chapter, try it with the strawberry sometime, and then another time drizzle it with caramel sauce, and then sprinkle some flaky fleur de sel or maldon over the top. It is a religious experience. It's delicious. All right, okay, so we've got our dressing. Our dressing is all made. Normally when you're not talking your head off like I am, it takes approximately 3 minutes. So sorry if I made that seem like a very drawn out process. I pinky promise it is not. I'm gonna give the pasta one more shake. Remove any extra water. No soggy pasta salad for us, not into that. This is, I think I mentioned this before, this is whole wheat pasta. One of the most immediate, easy things that you can do to bump up the nutritional value of any recipe is swap in a whole grain option. So instead of making, say you're making a pasta, instead of buying white pasta, buy whole wheat. I promise the taste is super mild. I have, if you want a specific brand recommendation there, I really like Delalo whole wheat. I've tried a variety of different brands and it's the mildest tasting. The texture is on point. If I blindfolded you, you would not know that it's whole wheat. All right, so we've got our pasta. Now I need a giant mixing bowl. Please avert your eyes as I open my cabinet. I meant to pull this out earlier. Oh, it could be worse.
You're getting a lot of thanks for just keeping it real. So I wouldn't worry about the bowl. I think people enjoy seeing you. Somebody said love the slippers. Someone said love seeing you in your kitchen.
Dude,
So
man, we're just like, it's like all my favorite things.
we're hanging out with you at home, right?
So the stuff I do have, I get really excited about. I'm also really passionate about my house slippers. It's the little things. It's the little things. Seems like you guys, this crowd gets that, which I appreciate.
Yeah, I think everyone feels really great hanging out with you in your kitchen right now.
Oh, it's so sweet. Well, I'm really, really happy that you guys are all here. One of, I know I mentioned this when I was, what spatula do I want? None of them. I mentioned this when I was kind of advertising the event, but I was so bummed not to be able to get out and about and travel. And, you know, maybe there'll be a certain time where that is safe. But in the meantime, I so appreciate having you all here so that we can at least hang out this way. And hey, we get to do it in slippers. So that's kind of a bonus, right? Although if you want to wear your slippers in public, that's fine. You do you. I'm not going to judge that. Okay, we're doing this very fancy technique I call dump the dressing onto the pasta.
It looks beautiful on camera, by the way. It's just super creamy and
it smells really good too. I wish you guys could smell this. Okay, dressing is in. What do I do next? Okay, I'm always checking my steps and rereading the ingredients, even on my own recipe, just to make sure that I don't miss one. Clear myself a little space here.
that comment goes to a question that we had from someone who wanted to know how often you actually practice your recipes before you post them to the blog or in a cookbook, or, you know, how many times did you practice, for example, before tonight's show was another question.
So I did not practice for tonight's show at all. I figured this would be a really great group. I did read through the recipe and make sure that I had everything on hand. And I pulled out all the ingredients far enough before the show to where if I had to make an emergency run to the grocery store, I could. But so I like to be familiar with what I'm doing, but I thought that this would be kind of a fun, laid back crew, and I wasn't overly stressed about it. And you shouldn't be stressed either. Cooking is supposed to be fun. Like, I don't want you to feel like when you're in your kitchen, you have to perform. It should really just be about relaxing and enjoying. And that even thousands and thousands and thousands of recipes later, this is still the place that brings me the most joy. And I think part of that is because I try not to get too into my head about it. All right. Okay. Pour over the cooked pasta and stir to coat. Thanks, Erin. Okay. So now we're going to add the chicken. I'm thirsty, so I'm going to take a sip of wine. It's after 7 o'clock. It's been a long day. It's Monday. We got to get through. All right. Okay, spinach. So this is cooked shredded chicken breast. If you flip a few pages in the cookbook, you'll see that I have provided a couple here. I can just show you guys this right here. Why not? So this recipe, sorry Ben, I'm making you chase me all over the place. So this recipe is a part of a feature I'm super excited about. It's called 4 Unboring Ways to Use Shredded Chicken. Listen, I get it. Some nights you don't feel like cooking. You're busy, you're tired. You just want to eat the entire tub of hummus and bag of pita chips, block of cheese, whatever. this happens to me all the time, and that is why in addition to making recipes that they're not hard. I mean, most of the recipes in this book, and hopefully if you've cooked my recipes for a while, you'll find that they're highly doable. I pride myself on that because I want healthy eating to be attainable and fun, not too excessively labor intensive. So I have, the basic recipes, then I also included a lot of quick fix features for those nights where you really are rushed for time. So, and this pasta salad completely fits that bill. It is an easy, delicious thing that you can do with shredded chicken. Oh, and I like that I got distracted and didn't show you what I actually pulled this over here to show you. Oh, look, 4 things to do with a can of chickpeas. That's another thing in here. So I have 3 different methods for how to cook chicken breast stovetop. That's the one I do the most often. I did that tonight because if you haven't planned far enough ahead, just do it on your stove. It takes like 15 minutes. Slow cooker, if you are a pro planner, good for you. I need to learn your ways. And then Instant Pot. This one is great if you are about to cook dinner. You're like, oh dear, I forgot to thaw the chicken breast. What am I going to do? You actually can cook frozen chicken in your Instant Pot, which is great. This is on page 161 for those who are following along. All right. Now I'm going back to page 159.
One quick question. Someone wants to know if rotisserie chicken could be used and if you could poach it on the stovetop. Yeah.
100%. That was actually, you made the point that I launched on this whole wild tangent to make. That is, if you have time to cook the chicken, awesome. If you don't have time to cook the chicken, rotisserie chicken is a great tool here to help us all get dinner on the table more easily. So there is absolutely no shame in that. Feel free to, and I think I even say that in the cookbook, like feel free to source one in a hurry from a grocery store. It's fine.
Absolutely.
When you looked up close at this pasta, it might have looked a little excessively dressing heavy. By the time I get everything else in here, it won't. I may actually have made a little too much chicken, but that's fine. We're just going to go with it. This is not, so back to the question about recipe testing. So I was about to say, I'm not really measuring the chicken, so I'm kind of breaking my own rule a little bit. The recipes in my cookbook were all tested a minimum of 6 times, but a lot of them got to be a lot more than that. Those brownies that I mentioned, I think I tested them at least 12 times. Because for me, it's not enough, especially, I stand behind all the recipes that I make. My blog recipes go through several rounds of testing too, but for my cookbook, it was so important to me that these be the best recipes I've ever made. If they didn't just make me giddy and dance around my kitchen, they didn't make it into my cookbook. And then, a blog post, like also print is just forever, guys. Like that is a lot of pressure, and I take it really seriously that you're spending your money on these recipes, and I wanted to make it worth it for you. So after I thought the recipes were absolutely stinking amazing, which for some took a lot more tries than others, I sent them, oh, look at that. I missed a piece of chicken. Just got a chunker in there. I'm gonna shred him up too. I also sent all of the recipes to independent recipe testers. So each recipe was tested a minimum of 2 times by independent recipe testers. Afterwards, I had them fill out a survey, make sure that the recipe took about the same amount of time I said it would, see how they liked it, see if any steps were confusing or ingredients were hard to find. And I will say, when I sent the recipes to them, I thought that they were pretty much perfect, but I still got some incredibly, incredibly valuable feedback, because while on the weekend, if I'm just cooking for myself in bed, I might walk into the kitchen and be like, la la la, I'm just gonna open up the cabinets and see what we have and fly by the seat of my pants, or start with a recipe and then improvise. When I'm doing recipes for my blog or my book, I'm doing them for you with the goal that you can recreate them in your kitchen. And if you want to do something different or substitute, that's awesome. Like, power to you, adjust things to your taste. I like to say the recipes are the roadmap, but you are the driver. But when I want to make sure that at least the template that I'm giving you is as precise and repeatable as possible. I take it really, you have a lot of recipe choices. I take it really seriously that you choose to make mine. All right, now I'm taking, how fat are these grapes? Aren't these like?
Oh, they look so good.
Giant grapes, I know. They're delicious. I was eating them earlier. So I'm gonna slice these puppies in half and toss them in here too. These are red seedless grapes. The flavors in this chicken salad were kind of a spin on a Waldorf chicken salad. I think I looked up the history to that one, so I believe it originates at the Waldorf Hotel in New York. Fun fact for you today. But traditionally, Waldorf chicken salad has grapes, it has nuts, usually has celery. I left the celery out because I just thought that sounded kind of weird. If you want to try it with celery, please do, and then report back and let me know how it tastes. Yeah, grapes just add this really nice crunch and freshness. They also add another element of sweet. So remember, we were always talking about that balance of flavors, balance of textures. We've got the lemon in there, we've got the tang from the Greek yogurt, but then we have the honey and a little bit of the grapes to offset it. And I think we have a cameo. We have a special guest tonight. He wants to make an appearance. This is our dog, Teddy.
Hi, Teddy. Teddy's the best sous chef, just waiting, right, to be a
He is. I mean, he is just on floor duty. We don't feed him off the table. Ben gets so mad at me when I do this. I don't feed him off the table, but if like something dog safe falls on the floor, I don't, I might just like avert my eyes while he cleans up after me.
Teddy is a thoughtful observer.
Yes.
On that note,
the mailman comes, and then not so much anymore. Then he goes into being a very vocal observer, shall we say?
He does his job.
Yeah.
You've got a comment coming in that just one.
Grapes. If anyone has tips, let me know.
While you're cutting grapes, I'll tell you, someone just said that they love all your attention to detail and learning about the behind the scenes in your recent blog post. They said, I'm not a confident chef, so this detail will be really helpful to me. So.
Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you. That's really helping you build confidence in the kitchen is really important to me too. One of the questions that was submitted is if I ever wanted to go to culinary school. I have not been to culinary school. I grew up baking with my grandmothers, so I was a super pro cake maker by the time I graduated college. Oh my gosh, you guys, everyone wanted me in their study groups because I was the girl that would show up with cookies and lemon bars. Made me very, very popular. I never knew if guys liked me for my cookies or for me. But for a certain period of time, you don't really need to worry about that. Cookies get the job done. Anyway, I digress. Graduated college, and I realized that I did not know how to make healthy meals, and so I checked out a bunch of cookbooks from the library, started going to farmers markets, and then just really learned by doing in the kitchen. And people will often ask me, Erin, how can I be a better cook? And the answer is to cook. Pick out a few recipes that sound exciting to you. Start with something simple. I promise you can make any of the recipes in my cookbook. My directions are excruciatingly detailed, and I know that people are busy. My goal is to find flavors that are exciting enough and inspiring enough to where if you are an accomplished chef, you'll still find something new and delightful. But if you're starting out, they'll help you come out with results that you really love, and ultimately that's what makes you a better cook. And you know what? If it doesn't work out, it's fine. That's what delivery is for, and that's how you learn.
Well, you're getting a lot of comments in the comment feed that say that you are a great resource for them. They love the fact that they can just go to your blog and find not only all of the information that they need to prepare the food correctly, but also all of the great information about nutrition, what they can substitute, different ways to use different vegetables and different ingredients. So getting a lot of great comments there. Yeah.
So happy to hear that. So, man, I thought this was a big enough bowl, but it's going to get interesting here towards the end. All right, I'm currently adding 3 cups of spinach, which is about 3 handfuls. I'm just giving it a rough chop because it's kind of unpleasant to try to eat a pasta salad and then have a giant spinach leaf attack you in the face. So we're just going to give that a chop. I am all for the one-pan meal, and anything that is all-in-one makes it to where I don't have to cook a bunch of different separate dishes, and this pasta salad totally hits the mark on that. We've got whole grain pasta, we've got our lean protein with the chicken, and now I'm adding some veg. We've got our fruit, and that leaf looks a little dicey. Give it to him. If you wanted to make a vegetarian version of this recipe, it's pretty hearty, so you could just leave the chicken out, or you could try swapping in a can of rinsed and drained chickpeas. If the 4 things to do with a can of chickpeas does not give it away, I absolutely love chickpeas. They're so inexpensive. They're so good for you and mild. They have a nice texture. I'm a fan. All right.
So one quick question, Erin. Someone wants to know how long this would keep in the fridge with the spinach and the grapes.
So I would say for optimal 2 days, I like to hit the leftovers with a squeeze of lemon juice. But honestly, it just kind of depends on how picky you are. I personally am not super picky about texture. So what I would do if I knew that I wanted to extend this is I wouldn't add the spinach right away. I would just add the spinach to the part that I was going to eat that day, because really what breaks down first is that the spinach gets kind of soggy. Or you can just eat soggy spinach, it's not the end of the world. All right, next I'm chopping up some green onions, AKA scallions. I don't know, is that a regional thing? These, again, more flavor. So these are gonna add just a little bit of bite and a little more zip, kind of like what the mustard did.
It's great to hear the crunch.
Oh, they're fresh. Green onions are actually one of the things, there's a number of things you can always find in my fridge. All right, number one, meat and cheese. You never know when you're gonna need to throw down a cheese board, especially if it's Monday. I'm sorry, I'm so disappointed in myself. I should have one right now. So meat and cheese, I always like to keep a block of Parmesan in my refrigerator just because that keeps forever, and it's a great way to up the flavor of everything from soup to salads, pasta. I think it's one of the most versatile cheeses to use in your cooking. What else do we have in our refrigerator right now? I try to keep a couple of fresh veggies on hand, like spinach, and then green onion. That is another surprising one that I think is really handy to have. If you rinse it and then wrap it in paper towel, pop it in a big zip top bag, it can last like a week or more. And in addition to using it raw like this, it's really, really good for stir fries. It's one of those, they're inexpensive. They cost like 79 cents a bunch, and they can really up the flavor of so many different recipes. Eggs, they're good in scrambled eggs. Oh, that's another thing that's always in our fridge. Can turn just about anything into a full meal by putting an egg on it. And I was single and on a student budget long enough to know it.
So Susan wants to know if your husband ever cooks for you, and if so, what his go-tos are, and does he cook from your blog for you?
He's silently mouthing me on the other side of the phone, be nice. So Ben is a champion dishwasher and taste tester. And when I do ask him to help me out, and when I ask him to help me out in the kitchen, he will, but I don't mean this in any kind of like gender role way. It's a place where I really enjoy taking charge and find a lot of joy, and I am very grateful that he is so appreciative of my cooking and so helpful with all of the cleanup too. Yeah, he'll hang out. He hangs out with me while I cook dinner, because for me it's kind of a bit of a social thing as well. It's just nice to have some company in the kitchen. So that's actually what we do most evenings, is just hang out in the kitchen while I cook, like have a glass of wine. Remember I mentioned that cheese plate? I got really super into baking sourdough during quarantine, so usually there's a loaf of that laying around as well.
I'm getting a lot of comments that sounds pretty perfect. Nice night in the kitchen, chatting, good glass of wine.
Yeah.
Oh, I have a question from Laura who wants to know, what wine pairs best with this salad or this dish?
Well, I'm currently drinking a Sauvignon Blanc because it's what we had open in the refrigerator. It is from a winemaker called Trader Joe's. I'm like trying super hard to keep a straight face and failing miserably, but it had kind of a fancy looking label. No, I do really enjoy wine and learning about wine. So for this one, I think that you could pick any kind of dry white. Sauvignon Blanc is actually great with it. I think the light, bright flavors in this, it's nice to have a lighter wine. Another white wine that we've really been enjoying lately is Chardonnay, but I personally am not a fan of the big oaky butter buster ones that coat your mouth. But if you look for a Chardonnay that's labeled unoaked, it has some body to it, but it's still nice and clean and crisp. So I think that would pair with this really nicely as well.
We're also getting
if you live in Milwaukee, I'm just going to do a plug for our favorite local wine shop. If you live in Milwaukee, check out Waterford Wine. Super knowledgeable, and they have wines for all price points. All right,
so
I should probably at some point start paying attention to what I'm doing here. Sorry, new question?
Yeah, we're getting some comments about people saying how excited they are that you have the book out. What was the biggest change for you? I know you said that, once it's in print, it's permanent, but were there some other things that really were part of your learning journey from going to blogging and sharing your recipes that way to writing a book?
Definitely. So I will say y'all trained me up really well in terms of anticipating questions, because my cookbook is probably the most detailed one that I've ever seen. And that is just because I am really used to anticipating the kind of questions that people ask. It was a little hard that I couldn't fit every single thing into the cookbook that I wanted, because pages do have a limit. So we actually ended up cutting some recipes because I decided it was more important to me that the recipes be complete than to have more recipes, if that makes sense. Quality over quantity. I still have 130 recipes. I just kind of went a little crazy when I was testing them. But I think another thing that makes this really unique is that a blog post, I'm kind of building separate recipes. When I wrote the book, I wanted to build something that was a cohesive, any season, every night cooking resource. And so it was also important to me to think about the recipes as a collective whole. And I wanted them to be even better than the recipes that you can find on my blog, because I get it. Like my blog recipes are free, and I'm really happy, with advertisers and whatnot, and with your support that I'm able to keep them that way. But so the book for me was something that I was going to do that would be really, really special.
Now, we also have a question from Rita, who's asking, what is the ingredient that you're finally chopping right now?
So I'm so glad you asked, Rita. This is tarragon. This is actually not an herb. It's a fresh herb that I use that often. If you smell it, it reminds me of, if you've ever had the Aveda, hold a little closer, yeah. If you've ever had the tea at Aveda, that is what this smell reminds me of. I don't like using this word, and I'm probably going to regret it the second I say it, but I'm already down this path. It is slightly licoricey. This is very important. I do not like licorice. I don't like it. I don't mean licoricey in the sense of like it's not strong. It just has that kind of bitter sweetness that licorice has. It really, really nicely complements the other flavors in this. If you haven't tried tarragon before, I encourage you to push yourself out of the comfort zone and give it a go. That is another really great way to expand your cooking repertoire, is to try just one new thing. So chicken salad, pasta, hopefully that's a really familiar, comfortable place for you. Try adding a little bit of tarragon, and then I bet it's really gonna blow you away. And then you're gonna make something and be like, wow, like I am awesome. I just did something totally delicious, but you'll never get there if you don't branch out a bit and try new things.
So if someone doesn't like tarragon, what might they use in place of that? Could they use thyme or rosemary, or what are some
Totally.
others? Yeah.
I think basil would be really, really nice in a salad. It would also be really delicious with dill. So if those are two herbs that you like more, definitely give those a try. Thyme and rosemary, I think you could use as well. Those are a lot stronger. So whereas this calls for a tablespoon, start with half a tablespoon and then taste it and see how you like it. The next thing that I'm putting in is sliced almonds. So this is a huge, giant pet peeve of me, and I'm just gonna get real bossy, and I'm gonna tell you have to toast your nuts before you add them to salads. You can do a whole pan at once, takes about 8 minutes, set a timer, because if you don't set a timer, they burn every single time. We have a small house in Hawaii that I have purchased with the number of nuts that I have burned in the past. Just set a timer. I'm cheating tonight because these are already roasted, so I don't have to toast them at the moment because I just bought a bag of them already done. But if I hadn't, I would 100% be toasting them right now. It really enhances their flavor and crispness. Nuts are a little bit more of an indulgent ingredient, both in the fat content. It's good fat, but not something that you want to sit there and devour an entire bag of these nuts. And they're a little more pricier too. So toasting them not only tastes better because they're going to be much more pronounced in flavor, they have a better texture, but it's also a better way to get the maximum amount of bang for your buck. So these call for, so I'm checking out, yep, half cup. Okay, so now I have to work some magic and stir this together, and we're just gonna find out how much I'm about to get on my counter. So just push him out of the way.
Erin, are there some other nuts that someone could use if they weren't a fan of almonds?
I think you could use, I think pecans in this would be delicious, walnuts would be delicious. And that is another, I'm so happy you're asking that question, because I think sometimes we just get so in our heads with a recipe. And again, it's really important to me that my recipe give you a great guide and help you know where to start. And if you make it the way the recipe says, I think you're really gonna love it. But if you know yourself and your palate and you have cooked enough, and that's another reason why it's so important in your to just get into your kitchen and start cooking, because you'll also learn more about you and what you like and your preferences. And if you don't like almonds, put in pecans. It's totally cool. Save me some of your pasta salad. I'm gonna love it.
Lori wants to know if you always toast your nuts in the oven or if you could do it on the stovetop as well.
You can do it on the stovetop. I'm just bad at doing it on the stovetop. I'm too impatient. Every single time I just crank it up and then I forget about it, and then I'm kind of stirring it, and then I don't know. Yes, you can 100% do it on the stovetop with absolute success. I really like the oven because I can just put it in there, do something else in the kitchen, and then timer, I set my timer. I remember to come back and grab them without having to stand there and babysit them. You guys might not suspect this, but I'm actually kind of a lazy cook. I know I'm toasting my nuts, but I want to do it in the most efficient manner possible.
So one more question from Barb. She
Yeah.
wants to know if the recipes in the cookbook are unique to the cookbook or if they're also on your website.
They're not also on my website. The only way to get them is to purchase the cookbook. That was something that was really, really important to me.
And then Mira is following up on the toasting question about the nuts and saying if you're toasting them in the oven, for how long and at what temperature do you recommend?
Yeah, it's going to depend on your nut. So I generally do 350 degrees. If you're using your oven for other things, you can kind of get a little north or south of that. For a whole almond, pecan, or walnut, that is usually between 8 and 12 minutes, just depending on your pan size. For something like these slivered almonds, I would probably start checking at around 6 minutes. Pay attention to your senses, though. You know that nuts tell you when they're done because you'll be able to smell them. So definitely look to see if they smell nice and fragrant and, well, nutty, like for lack of a better word. But I don't know, that might be the best word, because that is the point of toasting your nuts. It makes them taste more nutty. It makes them taste like they were always destined to taste. If you are toasting pecans or walnuts, or I guess this would work with almonds too, you just have to use a knife. If you break them in half, they should be like a nice light tan in the middle, and then when they cool off, they'll be nice and crisp. After you pull them out of the oven, if they're already really toasted or on the borderline of going too far, get them off your sheet pan immediately, because if you leave them and sit on the hot sheet pan, that actually can push it far enough to burn your nuts. And if you're toasting a really small nut like a pine nut, you definitely want to get that off the sheet pan immediately, because they'll go from just perfect to burned in no time. And if you've ever bought a bag of pine nuts, you know just how sad it would be. I don't know what those things cost a tablespoon, but
it's up there.
Another small fortune.
It's up there. So just following up on Chris's point, based on the cookbook, just to remind everyone that tonight you can still get the cookbook through the Boswell Book Company link. It's in the chat. It's 20% off the list price, and Erin is actually going to be going by Boswell later this week to sign copies, autograph, and personalize them. So if you haven't gotten a copy yet, although I see quite a few people saying it just arrived, they're so excited, they're cooking from it. But if you haven't got one, or if you want to get one as a gift for someone that you love and care about, make sure that you click on the link tonight so that you can take advantage of the special pricing and get the signature from Erin. So with that, I will turn it back over to you for the recipe, but just didn't want anyone to miss that opportunity.
Yeah. Well, I think we are about done here. It smells super fresh. I'm getting the scent of the lemon. I see the grapes throughout there. But I'm just gonna try. I'm gonna look one more time, make sure I've got everything in here. I do. And I can see that I'm looking at all my ingredients that I have out in front of me. I can see that I got through them. So I think I'm just gonna taste it. I'm sorry, this is really mean. This is really mean.
We're all with you in spirit right now.
I just gotta try it, I know. It is delicious. You guys have to try this.
Well, Moni Mac is actually
tastes like a summer day.
They're making it right along with you. Quite a few people I see in their kitchens on their videos that they're posting inside the chat. Moni just held up a big pan. She made a big plate for tonight. Quite a few people are cooking along.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad to hear that.
So one question.
Hope you guys like it.
Sorry, Erin.
No, go ahead.
One question from, I believe it was Ed, wanted to know if you ever cook with sous vide methods at all, or if you stay away from that.
Stay away from it. I just haven't tried it yet. The people I know who do sous vide are just so passionate about sous vide. My sister-in-law actually works in a restaurant. I know that's a method they use a lot because it is just so consistent and yields really nice results. My stepdad is a phenomenal cook and is just like in love with his sous vide. So though I personally have not, I just haven't gotten into it yet.
And then we have a question about the nutritional information. Is it where to find that in the cookbook, or if it's on the website?
Yeah, so we did not do nutritional information for the cookbook, which was a really, really difficult decision. Ultimately, because nutritional information can change a lot, and because this book is in print and it wouldn't be able to easy to update if it was incorrect, we felt like we needed to leave it out. It also can vary so much depending on what brand you use, how, do you just really like a little extra cheese? Do you want less cheese? That I didn't feel comfortable printing something that I wasn't 100% sure would be correct. Fortunately, there are so many free resources out there to calculate nutrition information. MyFitnessPal is a really popular one. Spark People is a really popular one. So definitely look into that. I know that that was something that probably a lot of people expected, but there just wasn't a way that I felt comfortable doing it. I can tell you that all of the ingredients are very real and wholesome, and I have the goal that you can feel great cooking from this book every day and making it a part of a balanced diet.
Yeah, I think that everyone here is posting how much they appreciate your honesty and just your transparency and how much they love cooking with you. We've had a couple people request additional cook-alongs, so that would be a fun thing to potentially do. To answer Barbara's question, yes, you can use basil instead of tarragon. Erin was talking a little bit about how that could be a fresh taste. Mira is asking what sous vide is, and that's just basically a method of cooking in a water bath at a controlled temperature. Oftentimes it's in bags and things like that. More votes for the cook-alongs. A lot of people just expressing their gratitude for tonight. So with that in mind, I think what we'll do is we'll ask a few folks if they'd like to post a few more questions to the chat.
That's great. I'm gonna get a stool. I gotta sit down.
Perfect. Perfect.
You just keep the camera there.
Ed wants to know about the two sites. She said MyFitnessPal, and I'll ask about the other one when Erin comes back on camera. A lot of gratitude, Erin. Everyone is really having a wonderful time. Ed wanted to know, what was the second site other than MyFitnessPal that you mentioned for good nutrition?
I have not used this one. I have used MyFitnessPal. I have not used this one personally, but I know Spark People is another one that's pretty popular, and I think it's supposed to be free as well.
So I'm going to ask Chris to let us know once we're sort of at time that we need to wrap it up. Maybe just let us know when we can take one or two more questions. But we had a few people both before the event and during the chat. You know, I know you mentioned you started cooking with your grandmothers, and that's in the book. Could you tell us a little bit more about how you really got started in earnest and what made you decide that you wanted to take this to the blogosphere and social media and really build a career around it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I guess I would say cooking started out of necessity because, like it or not, we all have to eat every single day. I've always had an interest in just enjoying a wholesome diet. I really, really love, I just love food. And I love fresh flavors and whole ingredients. I think going to the farmer's market and feeling like I got a little bit closer to my ingredients really made a big difference for me. But when I started cooking, I did not have a lot of money. And I decided, you know, so I wasn't going, I don't want people to think that like, oh, Erin just goes and buys everything at Whole Foods every day. Like that was not where and how I learned to cook wholesome meals. In fact, I will say our local grocery store here down the block from my house, if I can't find an ingredient there, then it does not go into my blog or my book because I just don't think that it is super helpful, you know, to you to expect you to go out and shop at a specialty grocery store. I don't think that that makes healthy cooking any more accessible, and I'm all about accessibility. So I decided to see like, okay, well, I need to feed myself. I really like food. I want to eat healthy. I don't have a lot of money. What can I do with that? Can I still make great tasting meals? And the answer is yes. The answer is absolutely. And I hope that my whole blog is founded on that philosophy, and it's even stronger in my cookbook. I learned it. I just have always been passionate about food, and then I've also really, really enjoyed writing my entire life. And so a friend who knew I was passionate about cooking and knew I was passionate about writing suggested that I start a food blog. So Angie, who shared my next door cube at Target, if you're watching this, I don't know if you knew, but you're the one that told me about blogs, so thanks for doing that. But yeah, I just started for fun. I put up a recipe here. I'm going to show you guys this one. If you flip in the book, there's a recipe called Grammy's Green Chili Chicken Enchiladas. So this was, here we go. It is on page 173. Here's their picture. So this was the first recipe I ever posted on my blog. No, it did not look that beautiful. I was taking it with a flip phone. My friend Becky from the Cookie Rookie did the photos for the Well Plated Cookbook. She's just a goddess. So I cooked them at her house and she shot them. It was quite the project. I have a blog post about that if you ever want the down and dirty behind the scenes. But I posted, so this is the first recipe I posted on my blog. It's my healthified version of my Grammy's recipe, and a friend made it, and that I just thought that was the coolest thing. She said, you know, do you have any more recipes? And I thought like, oh, I guess I do. And one thing, you know, pretty soon I looked around and I just really, really love food blogging. This was back in 2012. Food blogging was definitely not a career back then. And if you have seen some of my old blog posts, I think you will 100% believe me in that. Some of them are pretty hilarious. But slowly but sure, you know, the first month I remember I started figuring out that I could earn a little bit of income, and I was able to do our grocery bill, and, you know, one thing kind of led to the other, and here I am. So this, I will say to the person that asked if these recipes are on my blog, the answer is no, they're not. This recipe is literally the only one that is repeated, and I actually changed it up to improve it even more. So the base recipe is new. I don't want to say new, but it is vastly improved. And then I added a green chili enchilada sauce. But the rest of it, like, you're not going to find, this is a very, very notable exception. And the reason I did it with this recipe is because it is so, so special to me.
That's awesome. One thing I love seeing as the comments come in is how many people really have just followed you since, you know, the earlier days of blogging, and what a community you have. There's people answering questions for one another about page numbers and cookbooks and special recipes.
You're awesome. You're awesome. I'm so happy you're all here.
You've got a great group here. One of the folks wanted to know if you could talk a little bit about using a slow cooker versus, you know, some of the other things, or Instant Pots. Like, how do you choose which tool to use when you're working in the kitchen and short on time?
So I think it really just depends on the recipe and kind of what that recipe tells you that it needs and what the best method is going to be. Instant Pot, slow cooker, and stovetop are not all interchangeable. Like, the recipes in my cookbook and on my blog are specifically developed for that appliance. So if you're just really in love with your Instant Pot, rather than trying to find a non-Instant Pot recipe and then retrofit it to your Instant Pot, there are a lot of recipes out there. You are going to be in much better territory if you pick a recipe that is designed for what you're craving. And so that's why in my cookbook, I try to provide options for each one. But if you see a recipe and you fall in love with it, you're like, oh, I really want to make it in my slow cooker, just try it the way the recipe calls for. And then in the future, if you want to play around with it, then I encourage you to do that. And I would love to hear how it turns out.
Looks like you've got some fans here who are recommending specific recipes for specific tools. So that's great. Someone wanted to compliment you. Amy wanted to compliment you on your GMA appearance on Saturday morning.
Thank you. Oh, that was wild. That was really, really fun. Thank you. I'm glad you got to watch it. If anyone didn't see it and they want to check it out, if you go to, again, the cookbook tab of my blog, the segment is posted online now, so you can see it.
And then while more questions are coming in, I would just invite anyone who's on the chat, if you wanted to just post your favorite recipe. I'm sure Erin would love to know what you're cooking at home from her book and from her blog. Let's see here. We've got a few people just thanking you for making this such a fun event. A lot of people would love to see more of this. Let me look at, we had one other question too. I know you mentioned that there's vegetarian options for the salad that you made tonight. Someone was asking about whether or not there's a lot of vegan items that they can substitute, or recommendations you would have for someone. Yeah.
The short answer to that is yes, there are options. All the recipes in my cookbook are highly adaptable. I did not for every single recipe spell out how to adjust it for every single diet. And part of the reason why I didn't do that is because it would just be impossible to test it all. The testing for this was already incredibly intense because I did suggest so many different spin-offs. So for example, like the mac and cheese, you know, not only did I give you a great base recipe for mac and cheese, I gave you 3 different spin-offs. I tested every single one of those spin-offs multiple times. So unfortunately, like, for every recipe, I can't give you every single dietary option, but I want you to feel really good about making the substitutions that just make sense to you. And then if you are a person that follows that diet, that you're probably used to doing all the time. So like for this pasta salad, if you need it gluten-free, use gluten-free noodles. Like, that's great. It's going to be a delicious pasta salad. Like, feel free to make the recipes work for you. A great starting point for people that, since the question was specifically about vegetarian and vegan, if you flip to the back of the cookbook, this is page 311. These are my real girlfriends who are such champs, hung out with me. But anyway, over here, next to the lovely ladies, I have Marvelously Meatless. So I have, oh wait, no, that's the suggested menu. So if you want to cook a marvelously meatless dinner, do that one. But what I was actually trying to show you, here we go, helpful recipe list. I was like, surely there are more than that. So the back of the book, if you haven't made your way back here, I've broken it down into all kinds of helpful categories, you know, the 1-pan meals, 30-minute dinners. And then there's this whole section here of meatless mains. So these are all really, really hearty, and a lot of these can be very easily adapted to be vegan if you need it to be vegan. So just like tonight I was saying, swap the chicken for chickpeas, try a non-dairy yogurt. You could do that with a lot of these different recipes.
Now I have a comment here from Bob who said that he wanted to remind everyone to leave positive reviews of your book on Amazon. So
Bob, you're my favorite person. Thank you. I mean, if you did purchase a copy on Amazon already, please leave a 5-star review. I just cannot overstate how much that matters to me, especially because I'm a first-time author. Amazon does have a lot of power. If you haven't done so, yes, if you already ordered a copy through Amazon, please, you can just take 10 seconds, leave a 5-star review. If you haven't purchased a copy yet, or you are looking to purchase more copies, I would love if you guys did that through Boswell. They're my wonderful local bookstore that is putting on this event for us tonight. They're offering 20% off, and if you buy 4 copies or more, they'll ship to you for free. They can ship anywhere in the continental US. If you're outside of that, the shipping just gets pretty pricey. But I will be going in again this week to personalize them, so even if you're thinking ahead to friends and family for, say, the holidays, they make cookbooks, make really awesome gifts. And then maybe your friend will make you a recipe from this cookbook, and then you'll get to eat it, and it will all come full circle.
yeah, I think on that note, we'll just say that, you know, Boswell is an independent bookstore that served the community for years, as Erin is pointing out. Daniel is an incredible human being who is a part of the independent bookselling family for many years before Boswell. And just like Erin has done incredible work bringing us all into our kitchens, making us feel comfortable in our homes, Boswell is definitely that kind of shop. So I think with that, we will kick it back over to Chris with thanks to everyone who is here tonight. Please keep your favorites coming in the chat. We'll make sure that Erin sees them. It's been a lot of fun co-hosting with you, Erin. So thank you so much for your time and giving us so many great things to eat and feel good about at home.
Yeah, thank you. And Andi, I don't know if you want to take a minute to just talk about what you do in the community here as well. I'm really fortunate tonight to be able to be here with in just the greatest company that I could ask for, both Chris from Boswell, you know, Daniel, the owner of Boswell. They're just really, really wonderful people. And Andi, I know you do great work too. So I don't know if you want to take a minute to talk about that.
Oh, thank you, Erin. So yes, I am with the Milwaukee Food School, and we are a new emerging nonprofit. I'm the founder and executive director, and our goal is to make food system solidarity and sustainability and equity and access to food a normal thing for everyone. We're working hard to kind of create a bigger conversation and a more inclusive and inspired community table. And so we're working with a lot of phenomenal local people, but also building a scalable model with partnerships all over. We are just so delighted to work with folks like Erin and Boswell, just making Milwaukee a stronger and better place to be. So thank you for that, Erin. That was really kind. But yeah, it's been a delight to be here with everyone tonight, and we look forward to seeing you at more events.
Thank you all so much for coming. You made it so much fun.